Justice, a multi-episode series where we talk about various topics centered around the importance of social justice.
This season, we're focusing on women empowerment and leadership, exploring how women are breaking through barriers and creating change in every field.
We'll also be diving into the challenges women have historically faced and continue to face today.
From systemic discrimination and gender bias to the struggle for equal representation in leadership roles.
Despite these obstacles, women continue to lead with strength, resilience, and vision, and we're here to celebrate their incredible impact.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Social with the Side of Justice. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Mel, and we will be your hosts today. On today's episode, we will be joined by two of Long Branch Public Schools' assistant superintendents, Dr. JanetLynn Dudick, the Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Personnel Services, and Mrs. Nicole Esposito, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
Thank you guys both for being here today to speak with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So, what motivated you both to pursue a career in education?
Mine started from kindergarten. It was slightly a different path. I wanted to be a doctor of children, and I thought that that would have been the medical field, but it truly ended up being in the education field. When I was in high school, I taught swimming and taught a group of children that had Down syndrome and absolutely fell in love with it. So that spiked my interest and started where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Mine did not start as early as kindergarten, but I think my earliest memory is definitely fourth grade. My teacher asked us to write what do we want to be when you grow up? And I wrote a whole paper on how I wanted to be a teacher. And then she gave me the opportunity to teach a lesson in my classroom, and I remember it very vividly. That vision of wanting to be a teacher never changed. In fifth grade, I had an awesome teacher who taught history, which is where I got my passion for wanting to start off in education as a history teacher. Through middle school and high school, every time I got asked what I wanted to do in college, I said I wanted to teach. When I got to college, I taught. And when I had the opportunity to do my student teaching, everyone says, that will really let you know if that's something you want to do. And I absolutely fell in love with working with children. And I've been in the field ever since.
Yeah. So for Dr. Dudick, would you say that experience with teaching children with Down syndrome, is that why you chose special education specifically?
It was part of the reason. But definitely I knew that there would be a different way of teaching, a different way of learning, and I was always interested in the behavioral aspects of human beings. Mm-hmm. So it was the opportunity to immediately be able to teach different learning styles, different modalities, and really run a different type of classroom.
Nice. Okay. So you guys are both assistant superintendents, right? And you guys both have different specialities. So what is the difference between your two positions?
Well, my position currently has all of the special programs and services that we offer in the district. So it's very quantified with special education, bilingual education, accommodations, modifications, multi-tiered system of approach to learning that we work with children in the classroom that may be struggling and not struggle with certain things, and in order to equalize the learning field by doing things differently. So it crosses the full spectrum of general education students to special education students, but they're specialized programs so that everybody has an equitable education.
And my area is more of curriculum and instruction, so I focus more on the instructional resources that we use throughout the district, the curriculums that the teachers follow, all of the supplemental materials and resources. I look at programs of study, different types of courses to bring into the buildings, and then constantly looking at, is it time to switch certain materials, because we know that in an ever-changing society, the materials are also changing in education, and we want to make sure that all of the students are being exposed with the most current materials to help them become awesome learners before they graduate.
Yes.
But I will say, my office cannot work without Dr. Dudick's office. So quite frankly, we work hand in hand a lot because she talked a lot about accommodations and modifications, and that's what makes instruction in the classroom successful.
I was definitely going to add to that. We're definitely parallel.
So, Ms. Esposito, how like do you manage all of that? Because I'm assuming like curriculum for all the schools, all the grades, like it's a lot. Like, can you like tell us a little bit more about how you handle that workload?
Yeah, so it's definitely not something that I can do by myself. We have a team of leaders, and I really have to rely on my team to help bring information to me, and all decisions are made as a team. However, I do have to manage that team, so I try to make it a priority to spend time in all levels, so early childhood classrooms, elementary classrooms, the middle school, the high school. And then from there, I have to even think about the different content areas that are in each level. And so we have content supervisors who I work very closely with. I'm constantly meeting with them, talking with them, emailing with them. I try to keep an open door, so this way when they have successes, I want them to share it with me. If they have challenges, I want them to share it with me, but I want them to know that we are working as a team. So the calendar is filled, and I do like to be present too in the buildings. I like to see firsthand what's happening and going on, because that helps me understand it better. But every couple weeks I sit down and I'm like, okay, if I haven't been to this building or I haven't spoken to this person, it's time to get them onto my calendar.
So it seems like you guys are very like committed to what you're doing. You love what you're doing. So what would you guys say is your like favorite parts about the job?
Being able to actually go into the schools and seeing all of the fruits of our labor of organizing and making sure that our children have, and then really seeing the children in the classroom, their success, where they go, how they get promoted, graduation, after graduation. So truly to be able to see in our profession that there is a result, and it's always looking in the student's eyes and knowing what they have accomplished.
I have to say the same thing. For me, it's definitely any opportunity I have to work with students or see students in action. Whether I'm in a classroom, I want to sit down and start talking to them. I want to watch teachers do what they do best and be creative with their lessons, and I want to see the reaction that students have, and kind of see those light bulbs going off. I think it's fun, I think it's exciting, and it makes me motivated to want to try harder in my job to do more.
Okay, so I have kind of like a double question. So how long have you guys been assistant superintendents, and how did you get into that position?
Well, I have a full career in Long Branch of 38 years. I started as an alumni, so I went through the system. I've been an assistant superintendent for, I think, 10 years now. But I definitely started from the ground up. I started first as a student in Long Branch Public Schools, went to college, came back to the district, was a paraprofessional in a classroom, to a classroom teacher at the elementary and high school level, then was principal. I was the second principal of our first early learning childhood center, and then continued from there, and where I am now as assistant superintendent. So it was a long road, but with every position, I learned more, and able to be able now to hopefully lead in a positive way, and make an impact for everybody that I work with.
Okay, so this is a question for Dr. Dudick. So did you go to school in this building like previously?
Yes.
You did? If so, how does it feel to be doing a podcast here?
I absolutely love coming back in this building. When there were the rumors and the potential that we were going to lose this building, it really was hurtful. But to come back, and I was walking the hallway this morning, and I had my English classes in the front hallway. I actually taught in this classroom that we're sitting in.
Wow.
So it's full circle. And to have that tradition in Long Branch, I definitely think that that's what holds us apart, from a lot of the districts because it truly is a sense of home. When you truly say bleed green, you bleed green and you know where it is. But being in this building, this is a very special place and it's really, really enjoyable and it's really neat.
So, Ms. Esposito, do you want to tell us about your process of becoming assistant superintendent?
Sure. So I'm a little bit behind Dr. Dudick. I was not a student of Long Branch, although I did start my career in education here in Long Branch. So I actually taught in this high school as well. The classroom I taught in was directly below us. So that's kind of cool. I have to agree with Dr. Dudick. Anytime I come into the building, it really brings me back to my first teaching job and my first classroom. I spent 10 years teaching at Long Branch High School. I taught in the history department, teaching all different types of subjects within the department. And then I transitioned to the humanities supervisor, and I did that for about 8 years. And that's when I had the opportunity to really see what was happening in all of the buildings in the district. Simultaneously, outside of Long Branch, I started teaching as an adjunct professor at Monmouth University, teaching students who were going back as alternate route at the time they were called. So I teach people who are changing careers how to be a teacher. And in doing that, I got to work with people who wanted to teach all grade levels and all different content areas. So through my time doing both of those things, like I said, constantly learning. The opportunity to become director of curriculum and teacher preparation opened up. I transitioned to that, and again, in all my roles, I feel like I kept learning, and then I became assistant superintendent. I believe it's 2 years, and so I am currently in my 21st year in Long Branch Public Schools.
Wow. So we did a little bit of research into like the superintendent statistics in New Jersey, and there is like a big like gender gap. So would you guys say that you faced either like self-doubt or doubt from your peers when you decided like, hey, like this is something I want to pursue?
I would say I never had self-doubt, definitely, but I knew what, unfortunately, it was. Superintendents and assistant superintendents and these higher level positions do seem to be male-dominated, even though the field of education is female-dominated, that there's females in the classroom. So it was quite a journey, and especially when I did start to want to be a principal, that we were male-heavy. But with perseverance and resilience and knowing what my skill level was and the opportunity to learn more, I stayed the course until I was given the opportunity to sit in the position that I'm sitting now, and I hope that I become a role model for future young women to bridge into male-dominated positions.
I think that you hit the nail on the head when you talked about determination. I talked a little bit before about my first year here teaching. I remember walking into this building in the history department. There were 2 female teachers in the history department when I first started. It was very heavily male dominated. And I'm just talking about that one particular department. But I always kind of had the attitude of I want to learn from people who have more experience than I, and then I want to be better, right? A very competitive spirit inside. And so it was really about being determined, finding my confidence, because I think you have to be confident. But I think that if you are true to yourself, that confidence maybe comes a little bit easier, but you do have to set your eyes on that vision and kind of go for it. We're really lucky because, yes, the field of education is definitely dominated by women. But when you do look at the statistics, the leadership positions across the nation are very male dominated. And then when you get up to assistant superintendents and superintendents, the statistics even sway even more to more male heavy. However, here in Long Branch, and I actually, this time last year, I was preparing for a presentation, and we're really lucky. about 66% of our leadership team in our district is made up of women, and that's pretty something exciting. And so hopefully, like Dr. Dudick said, I hope that I could be a role model to others as well, and help other people find their confidence to pursue whatever they want to follow in their dreams.
Very nice. And then, speaking of leadership positions, so I'm sure there are times where both of you have to make extremely difficult decisions. And so, how do you deal with making those decisions that might put you in an uncomfortable position?
Take a deep breath first. Go over it. Try to partner with somebody that you trust so that you can talk about what your ideas are going to be. It's really important, even in a difficult situation, that you do have trusting people that are around you. It's definitely a team approach. And then you have to forge forward. You have to trust in your team. You have to trust in yourself. And there are many difficult situations that are uncomfortable. But you have to try your best and be willing to come back. If it's not the correct answer or it wasn't the correct solution, there are more than enough opportunities to come back, revisit it, and try something again. And be open to that. Be open to making a mistake with what the decision is, but push forward.
I think when anyone is in a leadership position, you're going to be faced with difficult decision making. That's part of the job. But I think the more you work with your team, the more information you have that helps you make those decisions that you have to make. I think that as a leader, you have to really make sure that, decisions aren't personal. I come to work every day. My main job is to do what's best for kids. So I have to make a decision. I have to be consistent with my decisions, that whenever that hard decision is made, it's because I'm looking out for the benefit of children. Now, with that being said, I think that it's okay to make mistakes if you are able to admit to them, but then also rely on people to help you make those decisions. But it's also important that when decisions are made, whoever those decisions are going to affect or impact, I think it's important to take time that people understand the why behind the decision that was made. I think if you're trying to lead and you're not explaining the why, it's hard for people to have buy-in and really see what the end result's for. And that takes a lot of communication and a lot of patience, which I try to work on consistently, because in positions as assistant superintendents, we work with a lot of people. It's a lot of personalities. And so the communication has to be a little bit different depending on who you're working with.
Yeah. So speaking about making decisions, how do you balance being empathetic and approachable with maintaining authority, like especially in your roles in like education?
The first thing always is to know that you have a person that is going to be on the other side of your decision. Keeping that in the forefront and knowing that we all have feelings and emotions, and that's something that we prided ourselves in Long Branch. Social emotional learning is very, very important. You have to take your time. When you're dealing with other people, you have to be cognizant of your delivery, what you're saying, how you're saying it. You may think it's the right thing in how you're saying it, but somebody may hear it differently on the other side. So it again is the patience. It is making sure that your message is clear, it's concise, and it really is taking the consideration of what the decision is going to do.
Dr. Dudick mentioned before about taking the deep breath before making a decision, and I think it's during that quick pause sometimes that you have to really put yourself in the shoes of the people that you're working with, so that you could really try to think of how a decision is going to impact or be perceived by others. And sometimes that's hard to do. But I think that when you are trying to find that balance of being empathetic, but then also being in a place of authority, is that you really have to, I try to be consistent with my decision making, right? Because I think consistency shows that, that clear, concise, vision is there. But it goes back to relationship building too, that you have to build with people to build that trust, and to know that your door's always open if a conversation needs to occur as well. So.
Yeah. So speaking back to like previously, how have you seen the perception of women in leadership roles change over the years, and like where do you think it's heading?
Well, I think it's definitely seen more. I think that it is increasing. I think that the ideas of what women can do and will be able to do have evolved over the years. It's the hope that it will continue on the trajectory and the direction that it's going. I feel that as a woman, knowing how I would need to make decisions or what my choices in life were going to be, I have to stand committed to my beliefs and my values and share them forward. So be true to yourself first as a woman. Definitely choose the path and don't take no for an answer. Don't let somebody be your roadblock. You have to use it as a speed bump and go over it. But be committed to yourself first. Lead by example. And hoping that women will persevere.
I couldn't agree more. I do see a change, but I think that in order for more women to feel comfortable and confident to go after leadership positions, they have to believe in themselves. And for some, that's hard to do, right? It goes back to that confidence. And I think that the more women leaders that are out there, hopefully they can speak up, share about their experiences, and help others believe in themselves so that they can really feel confident in where they want to go. And that's all about women empowerment.
So I was just wondering if you felt like added pressure to be perfect in this, like in your leadership roles, given the fact that it is such like a male-dominated field. Like, do you think there was more expectations to be more successful or that kind of thing?
I think as a woman, the expectations initially and moving through a leadership position were that when you did give a response, when you did do something, it did almost have to be perfect. Other than that, you would have been questioned about it continuously. I think that it is getting better. I don't think that we're there yet. I think that sometimes women are looked at differently because we are problem solvers.
Yeah.
We definitely see the beginning, the middle, and the end of the whole situation. Sometimes we take a few extra minutes to do something so that it is fully reviewed. And sometimes those are considered flaws, and they're not flaws. But it again is that commitment to strive to have the voice and push through.
I think for me, whenever I'm in a room and I feel like I have an idea, or if I want to question something, I do feel, and I think I have over the years felt like I better be prepared. Like, so it's almost like I had to have like a personal pep talk in my head. Like, okay, make sure that you understand what you want to say clearly, because if not, they're going to be quick to jump down your throat, right? And then once you do say what you're going to say, make sure you give an explanation so that everybody in the room understands it. and then be willing to answer all the questions. And in that pep talk, right? And make sure you have the answers to the questions. But you talk about perfection. I mean, who doesn't want to strive for perfection, right? But I think that part of perfection is knowing that it's going to be messy and there's going to be mistakes and being comfortable with that. So I might not know the answer in that moment, but give me time, because if it's important and it's important to you, I will go find the answer and I will help try to deliver it. And that's not perfection, right? But that is having, again, going back to confidence to openly admit, I might not know that now, but I'll get back to you. And then that follow through is important. And I think that in my experience, you know, a lot of times people think the conversation is over when everybody leaves the room. And maybe it's because I felt like I was under a microscope because I was not only a woman, but I started my career very young as well. So age became a factor as well. And so having that follow through to show that, you know, I'm going to be consistent in what I'm trying to do here, and it's important. I think that to me shows that persistence and that perfection that people strive for, but it does get messy sometimes.
So we spoke earlier about, like, you know, how, like, women should be able to, like, have a voice. So, like, in your opinion, like, how do you think as a district, like, we can, like, promote inclusivity in other roles, like, across the district?
Well, like Mrs. Esposito said, we do have quite a diverse leadership committee with a lot of women. But we have to support each other as women also. So even though that you're in that position, you can still feel those insecurities with the decisions that you make. So I think that women supporting women, empowering women to push through and break those boundaries. I don't know if those boundaries are really ever going to be absent, but we need to support each other always.
You know, in the beginning of the podcast, when you were giving your intro, you talked about speaking of strength, resilience, and determination. And I feel like in our district, our superintendent, Mr. Rodriguez, he always says the phrase, it's about purpose, not position. And I feel like, you know, it's everybody's job to focus on what's best for children. And so when you talk about promoting inclusivity, it's about, okay, well, who's up for the challenge? Who's going to come prepared? And I think that if we work as a team and we continue to cheer each other on, hopefully that will allow other people to feel like, okay, when is it going to be my turn to step up and lead? And so it's like we almost have to be each other's cheerleader. But to do that, we have to focus on the purpose, not necessarily our positions all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's like a really good way of putting it. I think like the phrase like it takes a village, I think, is true, and especially when it comes to the work that you guys are doing, like breaking these boundaries and like these expectations. I think it's important to be there for each other. Like it can be easy to almost feel like you're in competition with one another, but I think it's important to.
Absolutely. And that competition sometimes feel like that creates sometimes that atmosphere that's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about building those relationships of trust. I would love to be a mentor of someone who I know has a vision of wanting something that maybe I can help them with, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't have the opportunity to build a relationship with someone to learn more about them.
Yes. So I was just wondering why you guys think it's important for young girls and boys to see women in leadership roles or to just see representation in the media in real life. Like, what do you guys think is the importance of that?
Well, it's all about that being impressed or those impressions. When you see something, it's more attainable. If you touch something, you can get it. So being a role model is that same type of thing that we want to instill, motivate others to do it. But the more that you see it, the more that you experience it, the more that, oh, you know, she looks like me, I can try that too. It's about that constant reminder, and a visual reminder is important that I can do that too.
Absolutely. And, when I completely relate to that because, well, I am a visual learner, but I feel like if I am out there striving for something and I see someone or that looks like me or reminds me of me, I'm like, okay, well, if they could do it, then I could do it too. And so I think that it's the same in society. When you feel like a goal is attainable, that confidence, there it is again, it starts to kind of be sparked inside of you. And I think that for young girls and boys to see women in leadership roles, they know it's possible, and hopefully they start believing in themselves so that they could start believing in achieving their goals.
So, Mrs. Esposito, kind of straying away from what we were just talking about, we saw that you attended and presented at the 6th Annual Women's Leadership Conference. So what did you discuss there, and can you tell us a little bit about your experience in doing so?
Sure. Definitely a fun conference. The title of my my presentation, which, by the way, a shout out to Miss Jessica Sargent, who is our health and PE supervisor here in the district. We co-presented, so I cannot speak about it without giving her a shout out. Our title of our presentation was Navigating Leadership Traits for Success and Building Stakeholder Relationships. This conference is a 2-day conference, and it's really all about women empowerment. We put a proposal in to present in a session, and basically what we wanted to talk about was sharing our stories as women leaders, and we wanted to talk about debunking the myths of women leaders, right? So sometimes you hear different things that aren't necessarily true. So for example, how many times have you heard, well, a woman can't be a leader because they may be too sensitive, because they're more of a, the motherly figure, right? So that's a myth. And that may be true in some cases, but it's not necessarily the whole truth. So our presentation was about debunking myths that some people say that are a little bit perhaps maybe stereotypical. And then we found research to help us debunk those myths. And we did this by kind of sharing our personal stories. I focused a lot on talking about, there's this phrase, so I have 2 young daughters, right? I'm a mom of 2 young girls. My youngest is 11 and my oldest is 14. And, as I'm raising them, one thing that I want them to grow up believing in themselves is to be unapologetically themselves. I feel like that's kind of like a mantra, be unapologetically you. And so that's what I talked about during our presentation was, how can you allow your core values drive your focus in life? Because if someone can really identify what they value in themselves and in being a pure human being, then that will allow them to reach their goals, and eventually it will mold their leadership style. So that was our message, be unapologetically yourself.
So I know it was like a women's leadership conference, but was it only women there, or like were there men there? Like, what was the audience?
So mostly women, however, men were invited, and there were men in the audience, but I would say that the majority of the people who attended were women.
Okay, so for both of you guys, what is one piece of advice you would give to women or any of our viewers who are struggling with representation? And how did you find ways to represent yourself in our community?
Well, always know that you have the brains, the heart, and the courage to persevere. Know that yourself, model by example, and give forward. Whatever gifts that you believe that you have, try to share them with others. Be open, make mistakes, but be current with what you know and be honest with your approach in life.
And I would tell anyone to just be true to yourself, because if you try to be anything else, it's going to come off as being unauthentic, and after a while it will become very uncomfortable. So if you want to be successful in life, really be true to yourself, love yourself, and go after your dreams, and don't take no for an answer. If there's something you really want, dig deep inside, find that confidence that you're going to need to get it, and believe in yourself, and be unapologetically you.
I just want to thank you guys again, Dr. Dudick and Mrs. Esposito, for joining us. Your insights into leadership, overcoming challenges, and empowering other women are truly inspired. I know that there's a lot of things you guys said that did stick with me, so I thank you guys a lot.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as we wrap up today's conversation, we want to leave you with a reminder that rings especially true in the world of leadership. In the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, speak your mind even if your voice shakes.
So whether you're navigating leadership, facing obstacles, or just speaking out for change, remember to keep pushing forward and making your voice heard.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share this conversation with others.
You can also follow us on Instagram at SocialJPodcast for more updates and inspiring stories. We'll be back with another episode soon, so stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to Social with a Side of Justice.